What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the best BONESTORM witch build in Path of Exile 2. So in this guide I will give you a quick overview of the setup, then I will explain what skill gems and upgrades should you focus on. Then as well we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it for both the mid game and the end game. And then finally we will go over the passive tree, attributes, your skill rotations, and even what Atlas passive should you use, so we would be able to get the highest damage possible and much more. If you are looking for this build on the website, then click my link in this video's description or the pinned comment. This setup is known as the BONESTORM witch build, and this skill by itself is a slow clearing ability, but with the right gems, passives and synergies, we can make it 100 times better, and this is exactly what we have right here. This build also has two variants, so going full crit chance, what I will personally be doing for myself, or then perhaps go with the detonate a dead variant. Both of these will excel at different things, so which one you choose is up to you. This variant, so the full crit chance setup, excels at huge amount of damage. We won't be focusing on anything else besides the massive crits and stacking as much life as possible, because the more life/defense we have, the more damage we can do in return. Also, at some point in the later game, some lowered gear players might run into a mana problem, but lucky for us, the witch has many tools to address this problem. And with optimized gear, we need nothing more than a single stat roll on our weapon or the gear to completely solve this issue. So if you are finally looking for a super fun blood mage build that primarily doesn't use the life leech, but instead goes full life and full crit, then this is the one for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the witch, and our Ascendancy is the blood mage. Then for the first skill we have the BONESTORM with support gems such as the Brutality, Arcane Tempo, Inevitable Critical and the Super Critical. Then second we got the Bone Cage with the Spell Cascade, Lockdown and the Splinter. Then next we got the Life Remnant with the Vitality, Clarity and the Cannibalism. Then next we have the Combat Frenzy with the Perfusion, Pin and the Potential. And finally for the last one we got the Bone Blast with no support gems. Most of this setup is structured around using the BONESTORM and the Bone Cage to delete enemies left and right, so we use gems and skills that will support and increase their area and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next we also have a leveling build, as before getting the BONESTORM and unlocking the Life Remnant, and even before spending your first 2 Ascendancy points, the Blood Mage DPS can be quite a bit low, so this setup should make it easier for you to start actually building the setup before you get our main skills and the nodes working. For the first one we got the Essence Drain with a support gem called the Withering Touch. Next we have the Contagion with the Swift Affliction. Then third we got the BONESTORM with the Brutality and Pierce. And finally we have the Bone Cage with the Spell Cascade and the Lockdown. And then after you invest your first 2 Ascendancy points, then now you can start dropping off skills and only using our main setup. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the spell and minion damage increase node. Then next we want to keep on going like this until we get to our first stop, which is the potent incantation. Then now keep on going to the right side to get this critical exploit. Then now we circle back a little and keep going like this until we get the sudden escalation. Then now from this point we go down like this, then take the right path and keep going until this point, and then keep going all the way up until the tempered mind. Then next we go down a bit and then take right, which will take us all the way to our first keystone, the resonance. Then from this point we want to circle back again and simply get the last 2 priority nodes called the Power Within and the last 4 Power. And then finally from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of the nodes that we got are important, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then in the late game to make it even more powerful. Also, as far as attributes go, so you just simply want to fill your attribute requirements for the gear and skill gems, and then after that, spend the rest of your leftover attributes into more strength. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for our Ascendancy build, this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Sangumancy, but please don't get it too early. This node is required for every blood mage, and this ability does ton of self damage, and it can be quite hard to mitigate this in the early game. So I recommend for you to wait until you complete your second trial and then take your first and second Ascendancy at the same time. So then after the second trial, you want to get the Grasping Wounds. This one will make you significantly tankier and synergize very well with the Sangumancy. So as I said before, get both these Ascendancies at the same time. Then next, take the Gore Spike. This will scale off your maximum life and is a big damage boost. And then finally, for the fourth option, you want to take the Crimson Power, as this will give you a massive energy shield body armor, and this will also scale really well with our previous Gore Spike. In PoE 2, earning skill points take a lot of hard work, so it will be wise not to spend your points recklessly. Of course, you can refund your passive points later, but only at a cost, so following a specific setup is extremely useful. If you are following this build, then make sure not to deviate from it, as some of the decisions that I made might not make sense at first, but is going to pay off later. So feel free to use the exact same path as I have right here. And don't forget to check this video description to find the link for this website, and this should make it easier for you to follow the tree. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or the rituals. Our BONESTORM Blood Mage build won't be doing crazy amount of damage against single targets, so we mainly want to do very small farming in boss maps or the essences. So then when we start, we want to first of all get this bottom right side like this, then from here go like this until we get all the way to the left side. And then when all of these passives are done, then now we go again to the middle, and now take the middle path and then go a bit to the left again and get all of these nodes. Then next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Attuned Wand with the mana drain, and for the extra bonuses we want increased spell damage, plus 3 levels to all physical spell skills, then also increased critical hit chance, and more percentage to critical damage bonus. Next we also have the offhand called the Emblem Crest Shield, with the armor and energy shield. This specific shield is the best job that I got, but it's not required. However, for bonuses we want max life, cold and fire resistance. Remember that our main goal is to stack as much life and resistances as possible, so that's why you will see few stats repeating all over again. Then for the helmet we have the Expert Vicar Tiara with the energy shield, and for more we want max life, cold and fire resistance. Then for the chest we have the Guild Vestments with the armor and energy shield. And for bonus stats we need max life, evasion rating and the fire resistance. Then for the belt we have the Rawhide belt with the increased recovery to the flask, and for the extras we want max life, lightning and chaos resistance. Then for the gloves we got the Torn gloves with the energy shield, and for more we want max life, increased armor and evasion. Then for boots we're using the Bushwhack with the evasion. For this build we will need to get these boots or use the pin gem on our Combat Frenzy, so which option you prefer it's up to you, but if you have the pin then the boots are not required, but still very powerful. So get it or not, but at least go with as high movement speed as possible, then also get evasion rating and more to dexterity. Then for the first ring get the Ruby ring with fire resistance, and for more we want max life, lightning and chaos resistance. While on the second one we got the Sapphire ring with cold resistance, and for more get max life, fire or lightning resistance. And finally for the amulet get the Solar Amulet with more to spirit and max life. No matter which gear you choose, at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. Then next we have the runes. During early item progression, most gear will be socketed with resistant runes like the Desert Rune, Glacial Rune or the Storm Rune. But once elemental resistances have been capped, and the elemental resistant runes are no longer necessary, you then want to opt in to increase their maximum life with body runes or consider socketing a soul core. So overall for our weapon we're using the Iron Rune. Then for the helmet we have the Glacial Rune, and then for the rest of our equipment we are going with the Storm Rune. As the game just launched, so this is a starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And as far as getting this gear goes, by far the best way to get better gear in the campaign is to check the vendor in the town each time you level up, as vendors can change their offerings based on your level, so this is the best way to find upgrades. Also, if you are desperately in the need of a weapon upgrade, then you can check the previous act vendors as well. And then after level 65, you then want to farm and continue repeating your maps until tier 16. And again, for more farming guides, check out my gearing guide video. Then on top of this, we need to quickly look into the charms. Charms are incredibly useful, as by having the right one equipped at the right time can save you from dying. If you are struggling with certain bosses, then look into what damage type they are using. and then use that specific charm to increase your resistance. For me personally, I like to use the stone charm for stuns, then the amethyst charm for chaos damage, and finally the ruby charm for fire damage. But as I said, which one you choose will entirely depend on the enemies that you are fighting, so feel free to experiment and mix and match. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. Our main rotation will be the same, no matter if you choose to go with the full crit or the detonator variant. So for weak enemies we simply want to choose a target, and then just spam the BONESTORM with the bone cage. And then for bosses or elites we still do the same thing, just this time also integrate the bone blast with the BONESTORM and the bone cage, and it's that easy. Most of our buffs will work in the background, which will give us the real damage, so then all you have to do is get used to the mechanics, which are mainly to use the channeling trick, then to be kiting enemies 24/7 and pick up the life remnants. And then from here just spam the BONESTORM and the bone cage and have fun. And finally, if you're low geared and run into a mana problem, especially against bosses, then try to get a mana regen on a gear. For most players, there's no real way to solve the mana issue, until you get more familiarized with the mechanics and start getting better nodes and items. Also, this might sound obvious, especially at the beginning, but if you run out of mana, then just simply cast less skills and wait. You'll be doing very high damage anyways, so casting few less skills won't really impact the gameplay that much, but it may reduce your mana consumption, especially if you're under-geared or under-leveled. So let me know what you think about this build in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, then you definitely don't want to miss my top 3 best builds video, where I showed even more powerful builds. So click the screen now and I'll see you in the next one.